Hello all, and welcome to How to Talk About Cooking. So, cooking is one of the most important rituals in every human culture. We all like to cook different things, and cooking or food is our fuel. And we like to make it taste nice, we like to make it enjoyable, we like to add different flavors, we like to cook in different methods, sometimes to preserve the food, sometimes to make the food more tasty, or sometimes to make the food smell good. We love sharing recipes, techniques, and home-cooked food with our family and friends. So, we're learning a little bit about cooking terminology, we're learning how we talk about cooking in a more general way, and we learn to read recipes in English and describe our own recipes. Alright, okay, so let's move on. And we'll go to the kitchen. Now, the kitchen is one of the most important parts, of course, of the cooking process. The kitchen is the place where all cooking happens, or most cooking. Sometimes, of course, we cook outside on a campfire, or we might cook on a barbecue in the garden, or something like that. But most cooking happens in the kitchen. So, some kitchens are big, some kitchens are small, some are kitchen diners, and others are part of open-plan apartments. So when we talk about a kitchen diner, that is when we mean a dining room and a kitchen that are combined into the same room. And sometimes you'll even have living rooms and dining rooms and kitchens all together in the same open plan apartment. Very common. All right, so home kitchens are all different. People choose to stock their cupboards, their fridges, their pantries with different types of food. Okay, so you might eat more cheese than me. I might eat more bread than you. In Italy, they might have more pasta than they have in Mexico, but in Mexico, they might have more tortillas than maybe they eat in South Africa. But you get the idea, okay, that different kitchens have different things in them. And we might have different equipment, depending on how often we cook, how much we like cooking, and also what type of food that we like to cook. Kitchens have appliances in them, such as ovens, fridges, grills, blah blah, lots of different appliances, and we do preparation on the kitchen side or kitchen counter. This surface, any surface in a kitchen, is called a kitchen counter or kitchen side. Okay, so put it on the kitchen side and chop it up. Okay, on the kitchen side, clean the kitchen side before cooking, blah blah. You'll hear this term used a heck of a lot. Okay, and of course, when we talk about professional kitchens, you'll notice it's often pluralized to kitchens. And when people refer to this, when it's in a restaurant, cafe, or hotel, so you often hear people use the term, "Oh, I work in kitchens," or "I enjoy working in kitchens." Okay, and that means you work as a chef, a cook, kitchen porter, or some other job in a kitchen. So it's a very normal thing if you talk about people who are cooking professionals. They'll often use this term kitchens, plural, to talk about what they do. All right, now we know where to cook. Let's find out a little bit more about the methods of cooking. Recipes. Okay, so recipes are instructions on how to prepare and cook your meals. And you can find recipes in recipe books and online, of course, on cooking websites or wherever. So most recipes follow the same basic structure. So I'll often have a title, in this case, cheese on toast. This is a very simple recipe for illustration purposes only. Then we'll say serves, and that's basically the number of people that the amount of food will serve. In this case, just one. Sometimes you might say 3 to 4 or whatever. Then there's the prep time. Prep is short for preparation. We'll come into more detail on what that means later. But that just means everything before you start cooking. All the chopping, all the mixing, all the stuff like that. The cooking time is the amount of time the actual cooking takes. And it really depends on the dish and how long this will be. And then there's the ingredients. And the ingredients are the materials used in the cooking process, such as vegetables or veg, fruit, meats, sauces, seasoning, spices, herbs, and whatever. Okay, so just notice how I said herbs. In Britain, we pronounce the H, herb. In America, they don't pronounce the H and they say herb. Okay, whatever you like. And so, yeah, and measurements is really important. Measurements or amounts. So usually you'll see weights in grams or kilograms or pounds or ounces. Usually in America, they'll use pounds or ounces. Usually in Europe, they'll use grams, kilograms. In Britain, actually, they kind of use both. Okay, both imperial and metric measurements, so that can be confusing. And a lot of this is really common in recipes, especially. Okay, these unprecise terms like 2 small onions, 5 large potatoes. These are really, really common. Okay, and it's very rare for us to say, 35 grams of onions, or 12 grams of chives. We'll usually say something much less specific, like 2 large carrots, something like that. All right, okay, this next point is very important. 1 clove of garlic, or bulb of garlic. You'll hear this term clove and bulb used quite a lot when we talk about garlic. So, a bulb of garlic is the whole garlic. A clove is one of the individual segments of garlic, okay, one of these little bits that come out inside, okay, and then we peel the individual segments and we cook them. So, but you'll often hear the term clove, especially used in recipes when talking about fresh garlic. A clove, when we talk about, if somebody says a bulb, they mean the entire garlic. Okay, like that. All right, another really important one in cooking is sprig. Very important when we talk about herbs or other plants, but usually herbs. So things like a sprig of parsley, a sprig of mint, a sprig of basil, a sprig of rosemary. One of these really common important herbs, okay, comes in sprigs. And sprig is basically a collection of leaves or a collection of shoots, okay, sort of bunched together. So that's a sprig, roughly, okay. And you'll see a sprig, and it's usually quite small, okay, and they can be held together like that. Another useful one is a pinch. Okay, a pinch is the amount of stuff that will fit in between the pinch of your fingers. So it just means a really small amount. Okay, a pinch of salt, right? A pinch of pepper, a pinch of cinnamon, and usually used when we talk about powdered stuff, okay, or stuff that comes in really small amounts. The other one that's useful, particularly for liquids, a splash or dash. In this recipe, as you can see, I've written a dash of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, so a dash, okay, is a really small amount of a liquid, usually like 1 or 2 shakes. Okay, but it just means a tiny amount, really. It doesn't mean a specific amount. It just means kind of a small amount. We often say a dash of soy sauce is very common, or a splash. Splash or dash are fine for liquids. You might hear dash used for salt and pepper as well, or spices. A dash of chili powder or something like that. So dash could be used for both liquid and powders, but splash can only be used for liquids. Okay. Other things that we might talk about here, okay, is stuff like that, just sort of measurements. There are loads of different ways we could talk about measurements. So let's go to the method. So it's also on the method. The method is the description of how you make the recipe, such as the chopping the onions, melting the butter, preheating the oven, all these kinds of steps. So it's usually these step-by-step instructions. Often they're numbered, though they're not always numbered. And it's simply how you make the recipe in small amounts. Okay, leave to cool for 5 minutes. Okay, melt the butter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, lots to talk about there. All right, best of luck. Now we know about recipes, let's move on to all the different parts of the cooking process. Okay, so equipment. We'll start with kitchenware. So kitchenware is all the equipment and tools you use to cook a recipe, or to cook generally. So utensils are one of the most important parts of kitchenware, such as spatulas. Spatulas are for stirring or for scraping or for using in a frying pan, most usually, for moving vegetables and meat around. A slotted spoon, something like this, is a spoon with holes in it, basically. A spoon with holes in it, usually used, of course, for lifting things out of hot water or for serving things out of fat or whatever. Okay, often used in deep fryers or boiling. A ladle is something for moving liquid. Okay, so if you know ladle is often used, you ladle soup, and ladle can be used as a verb as well. Okay, so you ladle soup into the bowls, you use a ladle to move broth, okay, or liquid out of one container into another container, something like that. So a ladle. You'll often hear kitchen scissors, and that is just those special scissors you use in a kitchen. A whisk. Now this is a type of whisk, although an unusual type of whisk, but a whisk is that thing we use to mix stuff and add air. Tongs are anything used to grab. Okay, so any kind of grabbing implement we can call a tong. Okay, often used, you might say kitchen tongs are the ones we use to move meat or vegetables around, or grab things off a grill, or grab things out of the oven. Okay, we might use kitchen tongs for that. There's also salad tongs, which are used for serving or grabbing salad. And you also hear like barbecue tongs to move sausages around on your barbecue or whatever. A masher, okay, is something for mashing, okay, like mashed potatoes or but you can, usually use to mash vegetables such as potato or sweet potato. A meat tenderizer, that's that hammer that you'll see chefs use to sometimes prepare meat. A peeler is something for peeling vegetables, for taking the skin off vegetables, usually the type of skin like on a carrot or a potato that people like to peel off when they make roast potatoes or mashed potato or whatever. I actually prefer carrots and potatoes with the skin on myself. All right, so let's go to knives, which are a most important type of utensil probably. There are many types of knives. I've listed hundreds here. Chef's knife and serrated knife, bread knife, carving knife, paring knife, meat cleaver, steak knife, and many, many, many more. I'll just mention about serrated because many knives are serrated or not serrated. Serrated basically means zigzaggy, okay, like this, and it means they've got teeth. Okay, we call the little parts of the serrated knife teeth. Okay, and so things like a bread knife or various kinds of carving knife will often be serrated. Okay, let's look at pots and pans and oven dishes. So saucepans, frying pans. Okay, so a saucepan is those kind of pans used for, usually used for boiling or for heating up water or making soup or making sauces, stuff like that. Frying pan are those shallow pans used for frying or sauteing. Baking tray is of course used for baking, okay, but it's usually a metal sheet. There are sometimes metal sheets called baking sheets as well, but a baking tray is usually a metal sheet or metal tray in which we maybe bake your biscuits or you bake cakes, or you might even put like meat or something on a baking tray as well. A roasting tin is similar to a baking tray. It's a metal dish, okay, that we put in the oven. It's quite large usually, especially maybe for Christmas dinner, and we usually put a whole joint of meat in there, or maybe a load of potatoes for roasting, but it's a deep baking tray, which we use to keep, we use to cook or roast food in. Okay, just like that. And and there's things like skillets, cake tins, bread tins, oven dish, which I'd like to come on. Oven dish is very similar to a roasting tin or a baking tray, except it's usually made of ceramic or sort of heatable glass. And that kind of thing is generally used for things like lasagna or shepherd's pie, meals like that. Okay, other common kitchenware are things like colanders. So a colander is like a sieve, okay, except a colander is usually that stuff we use to wash pasta or to drain pasta or to wash vegetables. Okay, the colander is that thing really. Okay, whereas a sieve has a much finer. A sieve has many more holes, okay, than a colander, and a colander, is just like this one. Whereas this is probably more like a sieve. This is a colander. They are very similar, so don't worry if you get confused between those two. Scales for weighing, chopping boards for chopping. Don't say cutting board. Generally, the term is chopping board. For anything we do cutting or slicing or chopping on, we call it a chopping board. A very common type of chopping board is what we call a bread board. Very useful. Timers for timing. A salad spinner. Now, a salad spinner is that thing you use when you, it's like a thing with a turning thing on top, and you use that to dry your salad after you've washed it. Measuring jugs, okay, is a jug, okay, with various measuring things on it. You often hear in America them use measuring cups, and cups are actually a specific type of measurement used in America. Not so common in places like the UK or Europe, but you'll hear it in a lot of American recipes. So it's worth learning about measuring cups, I think. Thermometers for heat, of course. Corkscrews for opening a bottle of wine. Okay, all right. Tin opener, okay, for opening tins, okay, or cans. That thing you use to open tins or cans is often called a tin opener. All right, guys, so now you know all the equipment for cooking. Let's